Okay, welcome to our Tech Doctors deep dive on humanoid robotics. And this is our discussion section where I brought in two of the smartest guys I know, Maynard Holliday and Eric Plummer, to talk about the points that I made, some points they want to make, and just have a discussion on this topic. So, welcome, guys, and appreciate your making time for this.
Thank you for having us.
Uh, Good to be here amongst fellow robotics nerds.
There you go. Nerds rule. So look, there were a lot of points in the slides that we could get to, but I thought I'd start with the first part, which is, why does everybody want humanoid robots, right? What do you think the reasons are, and why are they nice to have, or would be nice to have?
Throughout the history of science fiction, um, you know, the most uh,
Iconic.
benevolent robots as well as the most fearsome, think Terminator, are in humanoid form. And then the other point I'd make is our built environment is, based on, the human form. And so, we think about tasks that we do, in our, specific form. And we're like, how could we automate that?
And I actually struggled with that question. Well, why would we want to create something in our form? To your point, maybe it's because
You're not going to get religious, are you? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no. Just I mean, maybe it's because it's a form factor that we're comfortable with.
Hmm?
But in some ways, it's a little eerie that mankind believes that they can recreate a form factor in mankind's image. That's a little troubling, but let's continue talking and see where this takes us.
Now there's an interesting spin. It's a little blasphemous.
Yeah,
Okay.
just
All right.
a little.
Wow. Yeah, I'm more on the on Maynard's side of this, where it's like, well, you got a robot, you want it to work in human-oriented environments, and obviously the hype machine is saying, hey, these things can replace people. Well, in order to replace people, they need to be able to do things people do, and the easiest way to know that is to have something that looks like people, and by extrapolation, it should do all the things a person does. You don't have to worry about making special tools for it or adjusting the environment, which may or may not be possible. So that's sort of where I would come from. But I think it's also a good point that maybe there's some latent religious desire here to be like our creator and create ourselves. I'm like, that's deep.
Uh,
That's deep.
well,
Yeah.
this conversation is going to go there tonight.
Okay. All right. So, like I said, I don't think there's any question that these things would be useful if we had them. So then what makes it hard? And you guys saw in my paper where I said that part of the reason was because of AI.
Yeah, so I build on the unstructured environment part and extrapolate to dexterity, right? So we have in our finger, our hands, 70,000 sensory receptors for tactile feedback. And so there's no robot hand that has near that kind of haptic feedback um, that would mimic human dexterity. So that's one. And then the general AI um, uh, point that I have made repeatedly about all the hype around AI just in general is the world is not words, right? And so these LLMs are static models. So once they're released, they are just as good as the last piece of data that was input, and so they don't learn yet. There's reasoning models out there, but uh robots are the physical instantiation of AI, and they have to be able to learn in order for them to navigate effectively, in an ever-changing environment.
And I just, I think we all realize, the human body is extremely complex and has evolved over time. So as I look through your material on dexterity and tactile feedback, we have to realize that how long, what has it taken for mankind themselves to become where we are today? And the thought that we could recreate that or need to recreate that, I think depends upon something you touched upon, Michael, which is what's the goal? What's the mission? What are we trying to create this form factor for? Um, what's the business goal? What is the um, uh, plan? Is this goal to supplement or to replace? So I didn't struggle with the content, but when you realize how complex the human body is, and you realize that there are, doctors that specialize just in hands or just in ankles or just in knees or just in wrists, we are an extremely complex form factor. So part of our conversation may end up being what is good enough for the mission, and then what is the mission that these form factors are being created for,
Yeah.
and why is 2026 the year of the human-like robot? What's happening out there that is creating this interest and this funding source?
You know what? I want to come back to that point. But I want to come back to first the evolution thing because I actually was working on my PhD thesis in dexterous manipulation in the 90s when my son was born. And I remember watching him learn to use his hand. That's when it clicked with me. I said, "You're not born knowing how to use your hand with all those sensors and digits and things." And I would watch him sit, right? He was a child. He would sit there and look at his hand, look at it, practice doing this, trying to pick up stuff. So, and like Maynard said, right, there is no LLM, large language model, that can do that today. It's all supervised learning. And the idea that if I train you on 5 dishes and teach you how to put 5 types of dishes into a dishwasher, that somehow you can walk into any house in America and load any dish into any dishwasher is just, it's just mind-boggling that someone actually thinks that that would actually work,
Right,
right?
right.
And that brings me to this hype point because this is the founding principle of tech doctors is there's too much hype out there. And when you say my understanding, the way I read the material from these people, the Elon Musk with the Optimus and the figure robotics guy, they're saying we are this close to having a robot that can replace a human.
What are you replacing and why?
You're taking it personally.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I come at it from another standpoint. Being in the nuclear priesthood for 20 years of my career, and having uh, developed robotics for hazardous environments, and so I come at it from, hey, you need these robots sometimes to go where humans can't go, um, and uh, and then to do things that would be uh, the old, well, not the old adage, the current adage is dull, dirty, dangerous, right? And so you need that form factor, um, and this takes me back to the DARPA robotics challenge of over a decade ago, the DRC, that essentially kicked off, the humanoid.
Why don't you describe what that is? What was that competition?
Yeah. So fast forward to Fukushima, you know,
Another nuclear
the
disaster.
world's second uh, worst nuclear accident. After the earthquake there, a tsunami swamped their generators and 4 reactors exploded. And if they had been able to, open some cooling valves, that could have mitigated, the disaster, of those 4 reactors. And so that's how the DARPA robotics challenge was born. It was like, what were the tasks that a robot uh, could do that would have uh, helped mitigate that disaster? And so the tasks were, and you can go back on YouTube and look at them, were to drive a ATV, all-terrain vehicle, get out of an ATV, walk to a door, open a door, um, pick up a tool, um, interact with the tool, turn a valve to, ostensibly um, start some, cooling water or, flow to, cool the reactor rods, and then navigate over some debris, uh, because of, what happened in the accident, uh, and uh, and then go on to do similar tasks. And the winning robot was a robot from Korea that was bipedal but had wheels on its knees, and it was called Hubo. And there are lots of video that you can again look at YouTube and see the bipedal robots. Uh, One of them was the precursor to the electric Atlas that Boston Dynamics has now. It was, hydraulically actuated, and most of the bipedal robots, failed. They weren't stable, when they started interacting with the environment, and so that was the impetus, for the DARPA Robotics Challenge in 2015.
From a hype perspective, then, knowing what you know, Maynard, I think you'd say, well, we're still a ways away from a home robot. Now, this is the opposite of what our man Elon is saying.
Yes, yeah. So we're a long ways away, simply because of the failure modes and the fact that these things are pretty substantial pieces of equipment, um, uh, and uh, we just they're not learning, and they don't have the dexterity, to be useful, in a home environment.
Although I will say they do have the mobility now. I mean, I thought the most interesting thing that came out of CES, right, the Consumer Electronics Show, was that they got all these dancing robots, right? They got robots doing flips, they got robots dancing, and I'm like, well, it's sort
But
of
those are
like
all
jazz hands,
pre-trained
right?
though.
Yeah.
But that's all pre-trained. They're not.
Well, that too, right? You
Yeah,
that's part of it, and also it's like, well, what does that got to do with doing actual useful work, right? It's like, okay,
right.
it's great. I got a breakdancing robot.
What's
What?
that
So
doing for me? Yeah. And
right.
I'm going to take a little bit different perspective on this. Let's assume that I'm a capitalist and I have a labor shortage.
Yep.
And the last time this country had a labor shortage, they imported labor and they used that labor until society believed the use of that labor wasn't socially acceptable anymore. And then they had to figure out what to do with that labor pool.
Do you want to be that? Do we need to be that obtuse? You're referring to slavery, I take it.
Well, I'm referring to capitalists that needed to lower their labor cost and found a way to do it by bringing over people that
Yeah.
they could put to work at tasks and not have to worry about any form of payment or anything else. But then let's say that that experiment went awry. Now that labor force is now part of your society and they want rights and they want to be able to become a part of that society. They want to be paid, they want to be fed. They even dream of one day being president of the nation that once enslaved them. That's how
Are
far they're
they
thinking
are
goes.
they crazy?
Exactly.
Yes.
So
Okay.
that was experiment one.
Okay.
Okay, let me now have experiment two. I'm going to create a labor force that has no rights, that I can work to an extreme that, until it malfunctions, and then I'll fix it. And I can put that labor force, let's say, for instance, I'm the CEO of Walmart, and it can no longer hire people to do the menial, dull task of checkout. But I can create an object that can say, hello, Michael, how are you today? Let me take your objects, let me check them out, and I'll just scan your credit card and you can leave my store. So I really think this time around it's about a different labor pool. one that they can control, one that they don't have to invest in.
Well, yeah. Well, look, there's a reason why people want these things, right? I mean, if you can take a person, right, who only works 8 hours a day that you have to pay health benefits and stuff to, and replace that person with a robot that'll work 3 shifts, that'll take you can even say if it costs you 50, the same 50 grand a year, you're still going to come out ahead,
Come on ahead.
right? So
And
it's
and and I can literally scale on demand. I've got
yeah,
20 in the back room. It's
yes,
Christmas time. Bring them all out.
exactly.
Slow season, I only need two right now.
In the back.
Now that's a scaled down example, but
Yeah. And I think, it's interesting that perspective because I think Maynard and I come from more that nuclear Department of Defense side, which is more like, look, these are environments you don't want humans in if you can possibly avoid it, right? Or it may not even be possible. And that's very benign. This is the darker side of this is this sort of very capitalistic, hey, I'm just trying to get the cheapest labor force I can. Credit to Sam Altman that scared him. He felt he was so close to having an answer that he went running to Congress to say, "Oh my God, we're about to ruin, millions of people's lives. You guys need to do something about this." To which Congress said, "What?" But different story.
yeah. And in let's just take an example of I don't know a hardware product. There's a consumer version of it that you and I can use, and it could break down, but that's okay. There's a prosumer version that is built for more tasks, and then there's a professional version. So that's my concept of good, better, best. Which product fits into the mission and fits into my needs? And if it's good enough, then that's fine. I don't need the best. I just need
Okay,
something good enough.
so let's talk about that because this is where it gets tricky though. Um, as soon as you start dialing back the capability of the robot, it starts getting very hard to tell if it's good enough. So I'll give you one example is would be like with the hands, where you can have something that has 5 fingers, but maybe only 2 degrees of freedom, where it only, even though it has 5 fingers, it can only do this. And you say, well, look, I've got a 5 fingered hand. I can put this thing in a house, it can do some tasks. And look, I've got videos of it. It's like, well, yeah, anything that you can do by doing this, you're good to go, right? So this is where that good enough gets very tricky, and I'm not sure I can go there with you because I think when you dial these things back, you're going to wind them all the way back to where they're not useful at all.
Good point. And you're right. Having ten digits, I could use these hands to play the piano or to hold something. But this is good enough to pick cotton. I don't
Okay.
need all of these. So it depends upon the mission and the goal.
If you have two or more digits and an opposable thumb,
Right.
that gives you a lot of dexterity. So you may not need all 5 fingers on a hand. Two might suffice for a given task.
Yeah, actually, and this is where I think we need to keep an eye on Boston Dynamics because I totally agree that they've been doing this for a long time and they have the most
Yeah, all funded by our tax dollars.
of course.
Yeah.
They have a 3 fingered hand, right, that's been around, I know, since the 90s with that opposable thumb.
Right.
And they
Mhm.
are, in fact, looking. This is what worries me. It goes both ways, though. If there was an existing use case where a good enough anthropomorphic robot was needed, Boston Dynamics would know what it is and be fulfilling it. I mean, that's what Hyundai is after, right? Hyundai is like saying, we are going to put these things, we're going to find something for them to do on our factory floor. And they are actively looking, and they haven't found it yet, though. So there's a lot to be said for it. And that's with a very powerful 3 fingered gripper, right?
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
kind of, it's not quite human. They're not even going to pretend it is. They're not sensing wise, they're not even going to pretend it's human level, but they're saying, hey, we think we've got something that's good enough. And remember, Boston Dynamics are also the guys that took the old Atlas and put it into a warehouse and quickly found like hell that there's only so much you can do when you have kind of I think it had kind of club hands at that point, right? It's very
Mhm.
and it didn't get the right kinds of use cases and capability. So and the last point I'll make about the dialing back is that like you're picking cotton or picking strawberries when you dial back to a certain point again, you get to the point where it's like, I'm just better off making a little wagon that has little mechanical pickers on it, right?
Yeah,
Rather
yeah,
than try to make a humanoid robot that bends over and pulls each one off.
No,
yeah.
good point. So I think the question then becomes, what do the powers that be that are funding these projects, what do they know, or what is their mission? Because these things are not happening just out of pure R&D. There has to be some return on this investment.
Maynard, I'll let you take a
Well,
stab.
yeah, I mean, so from the defense standpoint, again, from my time in in the two presidential administrations, and then before that, you know, responding to DARPA calls, um, i- i- the idea that your airman, your pilot, your soldier, your sailor is central to your war fighting in these days, has to be questioned. And we would talk to all the services about why that concept is. Why would you want to put your army soldiers to create first contact with the enemy? Why not use autonomous systems?
And they're stepping into that very knowledgeably, right? Because
Mhm.
they've been at this for a long time. They've learned from the DARPA robotics competitions, right? They have a lot of protections against things being overhyped, right? Because they've
Right.
been down that path. And
Yeah. And so again, when I was at Livermore, there was a tactical mobile robot program at DARPA, right? And the uh, thesis was replacing the point person in a platoon, um, because that was the most vulnerable position. That person, would step on the IED, or, take,
all the
you
sniper
know,
fire.
right, take sniper fire, or, as you were going up a staircase. So this was part of the design requirements. The robot had to be able to go up a staircase, because the point person was vulnerable at the landing. Like you go up a staircase, there's a landing, and then you go up, the one that's parallel to it. And when you get to that landing, you're vulnerable.
Hmm.
And so the form factor that they came up with was, what iRobot developed, the Packbot, which that business they sold off, but it had the flippers, if you remember, it was tracked, and then it had tracked flippers that allowed it to go upstairs and to turn, and it was man carryable. And so, to your earlier points, Mike and Eric, there are going to be continually need for task specific robots, that are not necessarily need to be humanoid, um for these specific defense tasks, or farming tasks, or what have you.
And on the commercial side, I don't see those same protections in place and knowledge in place. So this is why we started Tech Doctors, because we thought for some reason the technology review press can't seem to distinguish between hype and reality. So I'll give you
Mm,
an example, right? You'll see an article about Optimus Robot, right? And some reporters gone in and said, okay, I'm going to look into this and say, and what it always ends up is they're like saying, well, can it be done? Maybe, maybe not, but nobody bets against Elon Musk. So I'm being very cynical about this, but what I've found is that from a consumer end user kind of man on the street perspective, we think there are protections out there that when I see something on the news that I should mostly trust it. And what I found from it, certainly from a technology perspective, that's not the case.
And in some cases, it's about that fear of missing out.
Yes.
You know,
yes,
I
yes.
know in my heart that it's not possible, but if it is, I don't want to be on the losing side.
And
Yeah,
if you know how to do it, it's worth $1 trillion. I mean, Elon Musk is right. If he could build an Optimus robot that could do all the stuff he said for 20 grand, he would, Tesla would hands down be the most valuable company on the planet,
Yeah.
right?
And let's talk about that. You know, they would be the most valuable company on this planet, but what if I had enough money to leave this planet? But the effort to leave this planet would require uh, distance and time and nutrition that I can't do with a human being. But what if I could just create some entity to take with me or entities? And when I arrive there, I don't have to feed them. I just turn them on and put them to work.
Yeah, I mean
I've,
that's a great point, Eric. And
I've
there's a
built a
bunch of
labor pool that I can take off this planet.
yeah, and there's been several sci-fi movies with that. Uh, uh, you know, 2001 being one of them. It wasn't anthropomorphized, but then if you fast forward to I think in not Inception, what Interstellar.
Interstellar.
Um, yeah, Interstellar had
The
that.
block robot that could do
Yeah, the
everything.
block. Right.
Well,
But
But
isn't that the goal? I mean,
yeah, but
it could
I think
be.
that's a great point though.
Yeah. First of all, Elon's got an answer for you there too. He can get you to Mars. He can't get you back, and he can't guarantee you'll live when you get there, but he can get you there. He's got the
so
spaceship ready to
what
take you.
if I can get you there, then
Yeah.
I need a labor pool that I don't have to worry about bringing back.
I never heard that one. And I thought that was the part that made sense. But I was like, because usually I hear the opposite. It's like, well, before we send men, why do we want to send men to Mars? Just send the robots and don't send the people. Let the robots do all the exploration. And to your point, even let the robots set up the habitats and whatnot. Then when you land, you have a fighting chance,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I love that idea.
Yeah.
I think we're just a long way away from it. But yeah, I guess one thing though I want to explore a bit, Eric, though, is that does the these are inanimate objects, right? This is not Brave New World where you've now cloned people and dumbed them down and chemically made them. They're not people. These are
Right.
machines. They're basically toasters that
Right.
happen to be able to ambulate.
Right.
Do you still have a problem, right? Or suppose I gave you an AI driven toaster. Would you feel guilty having it make your toast every morning, day after day, with no recompense?
No, I would not, but there's a cost in that I then lose some of my own ability to do things. That object doing work for me makes me less able to do some things for myself. So when you create this workforce that can do all of things for you, what are you going to do?
So this
Mhm.
is the plot of Magnus Robot Fighter 4000 AD. We are now bringing back all the science fiction. Remember Magnus? Remember with the
Yeah,
smashing hands?
yeah,
Because the people had basically gotten lethargic and lazy, and they didn't know how to fight back against the robots that were, always threatening to take over. Because if we all got Rosie the robot,
right.
we ain't doing jack.
Well, I mean, and again, we'll edit, but part of, and we'll edit this down, but part of Elon Musk's, premise on this is that society needs to begin to prepare for the day when mankind doesn't need to participate. Then how do we reward them? How do we challenge them? How do we, provide for them? Because their need is no longer what their core need was at one point in time. Because I've taken away that requirement from them.
So we must explore another planet. That'll be what's left. When we automate Earth, we'll leave.
I think I think he is moving along that path.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there is literally nowhere to go
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's another conversation. Yeah,
without warp drive.
yeah.
There's nowhere to go.
But
But
but I do. If I were the CEO of Walmart and I had a labor shortage out in parts of the country,
yeah.
and I could buy an object that could check you out, just as simple tasks.
Hmm.
Because I don't like using self checkout. I feel like I'm working, right? And I don't like it. So if you walk into the store and its sole task was to pick up the object, scan and put it in the bag, that across thousands of stores is a worthwhile investment.
Okay. All right. Now I'm following you. Okay. Because I thought that you had a problem with sort of that forced labor force that's a mechanism, but you're worried more about the human implications.
Yeah.
Um, but
But I believe that the pursuit has an upside. I do believe that. The
you
promise
know,
there is an upside.
so yeah, actually, with the other group of tech doctors that I do this with, this is one of the debates we get into is hype is good because hype drives innovation. Now, I don't totally buy that. As a matter of fact, I tend to argue against it, but that is no question, innovation is good, right? We all agree innovation is good, and unfortunately, sometimes some hype comes along with it, and it sometimes the hype can be fraud, right? And so we lose money and time, but if the end goal is humanity's store of knowledge grows and we apply it to something else, that result is good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that successful humanoids, will eventually evolve into non, uh, exact humanoid forms where, they'll be like General Grievous, who have multiple arms. No, seriously,
No,
I'm
no,
serious.
I totally agree. No, 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 don't get me wrong. When I watched that fight, I was like, Obi-Wan should be dead. There's no way
Right,
he can fight Grievous. Well, guy's got like
right,
what, 8 lightsabers? He can.
right.
Well, if two hands are good, four hands or six hands are even better.
Right. And so I think they're going to evolve to those form factors. And as I said earlier, a combination of bipedal and wheeled locomotion and or tracked locomotion is best, for really unstructured environments, especially, in disasters. Like, if you're trying to, navigate through rubble or um, uneven surfaces,
Yeah.
a tracked vehicle gives you more
Or,
degrees of freedom, and it's more stable.
given the increase in natural disasters, just search and rescue, just
Yep.
going in after a tornado or something else, and just can I go into an environment that isn't safe yet, just to see if I can help.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
and actually, I think that's a really good point that the humanoid drives, like the figures and the Optimuses, they're really looking at homes, right? I mean, that's their dream, right? They don't say it, but they really mean home.
Well, I think
Whereas,
warehouses too.
and a bit of warehouses, but where the really interesting applications and useful applications would be these other places, right? Environments that are not friendly to people, firefighting, rescue, and stuff like that. Where again, a humanoid look might actually be a detriment. Like you said,
Yeah.
Mike, there could be a real benefit to having an eight-legged robot that can scale a cliff to rescue someone, right? As opposed to, two arms and two legs, right?
Hmm.
So I think that's and this goes back to the hype following the money creating the hype, and that's where it's going, right? And leaving, actually, Neil deGrasse Tyson made this point because somebody said, "Well, what's so bad about this hype stuff?" And he said, "Well, there is an opportunity cost. That money that's going into this kind of weak, probably not going to work stuff is taking money away from really interesting applications that could actually work."
Yeah. Yeah.
Good point.
Yep. Agreed.
Point. And I think also under the current uh, social climate, uh, agriculture is losing its labor pool, and I don't know how they're going to replace it. So they're going to have to find something
And man,
to
I
step.
don't, what the state of the art though on agricultural robots though. I mean, there's nothing that can work. Is there anything out there that can work in?
Well, no, I wouldn't say that. So some of my former colleagues from um, evolution robotics, have migrated to um, the agrobots, and so they're using satellite technology to optimize crop cultivation, and so I think that sector is pretty healthy and open to innovation. And again, some of my former colleagues,
But how can they actually? But I mean, I've seen some of those workers when they start, cutting cab. I mean,
yeah,
if they gotten to the point where they could say, "Yeah, we've got something that can move," or maybe it has to do it over 3 shifts as opposed to one shift. Are they at that point? And also, when we say arrow, that covers everything. That's picking peaches off trees. That's picking cap fruit, potatoes in the ground. Right?
Anything,
I mean,
right?
it's a pretty broad area to say we can cover that.
yeah. I mean, I think as I said earlier, there are these task specific robots that are out there doing these things.
Okay.
They're able to shake trees, at the right frequency to cause, the fruit to drop, into, a basket. And then, there's the pickers, that have, the specialized end effectors that are
Okay.
able to get, whatever the crop is. And so, because you think about the California Central Valley, it's the country's breadbasket, and it's just a fraction of the workforce that is, feeding the nation and feeding part of the world.
And I think this has been awesome, guys. I appreciate it. And this is a good point to exit on probably is that given the need in agriculture and given the smart people, experienced robotics people that are looking at the area, it's interesting that the answer they're coming up with aren't robots that look like people to pick the
Right.
food. They said, here's what humanoid robots can do, and here's what I got to do. No good. I've got to make specialty machines that go after that. So, wow, guys, this has been awesome. I don't want to suck up too much of your time. I appreciate your time that you gave me. Uh,
Yeah, I'm retired. I got nothing but time.
I got to go to work tomorrow. Well, we hope you enjoyed that episode of Tech Doctor's Deep Dive on the problem with humanoid robots. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.